At Zoom, we offer AI solutions to the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
Hearing from the customers that it allowed the physicians to be a lot more present.
Yep.
So they can ask questions that they don't normally ask. They are more emotionally engaged. So I think in that realm, I do see that it's very concrete, kind of positive impact that I see. So that's encouraging.
Yes.
What I did see is that with all these tools available, PMs are sometimes expected to do more because you
Yep.
can cover all these grounds at the same time. And a lot of times I also felt like instead of it used to be PMs waiting on engineers or waiting on others, it's like I think the dynamic has shifted a little where engineers are waiting on PM.
Welcome to the At Scale podcast, where we discuss stories of the latest technical innovation with the industry's top leaders. Today, we will discuss how AI agents are disrupting product teams. We'll cover how Meta is handling massive sales at scale using AI, and we'll also cover the impact of AI on real-world relationships, from physicians with patients to teachers with parents. Today, we're recording a special edition on Zoom with Zoom's Senior Product Manager of AI, Danran Chen. The first thing I want to do is dig a little bit into your background. Your background, I know you work at Zoom and you've worked at many other startups and larger company before. But tell us a bit more, what's your day-to-day and then what are you doing at Zoom these days?
Of course, and excited to be here. So yeah, I'm currently at Zoom. So Zoom, as everybody knows, started off as the video conferencing company.
Yeah.
And now we are kind of really moving into a AI-first human collaboration platform. So I personally work on the AI team. So in the past few years, we launched AI Companion. So starting with helping you take the manual note-taking out of your workflows, every meeting ends up with a summary. And then we are moving towards to more of a agentic AI companion that helps you complete tasks because everybody leaves a meeting with a bunch of action items. And our goal is to use that conversation data that you already have, turn them into the context that you can work with, and then help you, complete whatever action items, almost having a digital teammate working with you. But before that, my career journey kind of spans two parts. So I was an engineer by training. So many of the listeners of this podcast, that I had a CS degree and I moved to the Silicon Valley, joining Airbnb right after graduation. And during that time, I worked on the host side of the platform. So helping hosts better manage their calendars. And then later on, we also thought about how to bring more supplies to Airbnb by launching programs with API partners. So that's where I kind of had my first taste of product. And I've always really loved their emphasis on user empathy and design. And then it made me think, did I want to do something else beyond engineering? So that's when I took a leap of faith and then did my MBA at Stanford. And that's starting when I shifted my career into product. So after my MBA, I did a few different things. I first did product at a startup that does machine learning powered news recommendation. So that's how I first stepped into AI in the consumer space. And then Gen AI came. And that's when I realized the power is just so much beyond traditional recommendation. You can do so much more with it. So I wanted to be somewhere there's a bigger platform where you can bring this to more users and enterprises, companies immediately. So I did AI infra at Alibaba Cloud. So that was a lot of building tools for enterprises to build their own LLM applications. But then more recently, I came to Zoom because that's still where my passion lies. It's kind of bridging the hard technology to something that everybody can use. Zoom is something that you and I use now. Yes. My grandma can use, and everybody who works at big enterprise companies and smaller SMBs can use. So yeah, that's where I am.
Great. It's great that you mentioned that Zoom is used by everybody, because that's actually how I was introduced to Zoom. I don't know, maybe slightly before COVID, where Zoom was the first conference app or video conference app that was like simple enough so that I could use to like talk to my parents and my family. That's the first time at work at Meta we were using something else. But then eventually, like with COVID and so on, where there was an increase of popularity and need for like decent like conferencing software and stuff like that, we all migrated to Zoom. One interesting story is like my one of my primary job at Meta is like I support a team that's called like reliability infra, and then we are involved in a lot of production issues. A few years ago, we had a large production issue, and then we recover it started from a Zoom conference call that I was having with one of my team members. And that's kind of like one of the memorable moments that I have about like using Zoom and all the features and everything. And it's kind of amazing that you guys have been able to master what I call like, hey, this is can be kind of like an enterprise tool, but at the same time, it's used by so many other people, like more like in family settings and talk to the teachers at school and so on. So it's great that you guys have been able to kind of like figure out like those multiple markets that we can use like one single tool for kind of like everything. All right. Enough about me. So today, I want to have a conversation with you more around like how we use AI these days to enable products and what are people thinking about like I've used it like for example in reliability setting to help us like do outage prevention and help us like understanding code base that we don't usually like interact with. And I want us to get into that conversation about like how you think about AI and how do you think about like using it in terms of like product development and so on, and how you want to go about like introducing features. There's the use of AI itself, but I also want to use to discuss about like how do you bring to the world AI enabled features. And I think you have a couple of examples on this, but how you use it in your day-to-day job to get stuff done and so on. So let's start with like as a PM today, like if you had to describe a typical day, let's start with your own usage of AI. How do you use AI to get your work done as a PM?
Yeah, I guess I can start with where PM spend a lot of our time on, right? What are the surfaces? So there are a lot of communication, right, across different stakeholders, and that often happen in meetings. So
Yeah.
in that scenario, I guess we PMs talk about scenarios. I'm always having my conversations in a Zoom meeting or in-person meeting.
Yes.
And that's kind of not specific to PM, but I definitely use a lot of transcription tools to make sure every discussion is captured.
Yep.
Because we do have a lot of different inputs across marketing, across legal, and across every domain. And having those transcribed, having this data available helps me connect the dots. So that I definitely use Zoom AI Companion for it. And the other places where we spend a lot of time is writing, right? Creating documents, and kind of building slide decks, building PRDs, and I use a lot of AI for it. Um, so, and sometimes there are also prototyping. I think we've used tools like Lovable, Figma, Make in that realm. And lastly, I would say there's also a lot of like staying on trend with the market, right? Knowing
Yeah.
what competitors are doing. So that is AI is so excellent at it because it has all like the web's data and running research on it, just pull a really deep analysis and bring it in together. What I did see is that with all these tools available, PMs are sometimes expected to do more because
Yeah.
you can cover all these grounds at the same time. And a lot of times I also felt like instead of it used to be PMs waiting on engineers or waiting on others, is like I think the dynamic has shifted a little where engineers are waiting on PM. Even so, I think that's an interesting observation I've had.
It's interesting. I think from both sides of the fence, we all have the same observation. Like you just say, like, "Hey, PM, I feel I'm expected to do more," as engineers or production engineer, we also feel like, oh, we're expected to do more because like we have this additional capacity or capabilities. And now I don't have to wait for a designer. I can actually like, build a mock myself and then send it to the designer. The designer has to do less and just do the final touches and things like that. So that's kind of like interesting how it's shifting everything because like it empowers you, like it removes a lot of the, let's call it the boilerplate coding and stuff like this, and allows you to go and have like the visual argument, the coding argument, and then be able to finalize it a lot. So there's a lot of like sometimes like gloom and doom about AI. And there's a lot on the other extreme, there's a lot of like positivists around like, hey, what's going to be the outcome and the impact on society? So from your standpoint, like where do you stand? How do you see like all these AI innovation going? Do you think it's helping? Do you think it's hurting? Like, do you stand in the middle ground? What's your stance there?
Yeah, I think taking a step back, zooming out a bit, while there is anxiety, I think, around, hey, like first, what are all these AI tools? Can I even know how to use it so it can help improve my own productivity? So it's kind of catching up with that trend.
Yes.
And then later on, it becomes like, now these tools are so powerful. What's gonna, how is my work gonna change, right? On that point, I think that I'm lucky to be on like kind of like the frontier of building these tools so I can see some more concrete scenarios and use cases of like how people's lives has changed. So at Zoom, we offer AI solutions to the healthcare industry because healthcare, there's also a big portion of telehealth that runs on Zoom. And I do remember early days, we had a lot of discussions around, hey, will physicians be reluctant to use a transcription tool? Will a
Yeah.
patient be opposed to it?
Yeah.
But then as we start to see adoption, like in my own past like visits, like every time I was asked by different physicians, like, hey, are you okay that we are going to use a transcription tool? So what I found is that what we're hearing from the customers that it allowed the physicians to be a lot more present.
Yep.
So they can ask questions that they don't normally ask. They are more emotionally engaged. So in that, I think in that realm, I do see that it's very concrete, kind of positive
Yes.
impact that I see. So that's encouraging. And personal productivities, I think for us, we think a lot about how to really first remove some of the repetitive work. So I personally think that's what unlocks creativity. And I do think creativity is something, at least for now, I don't see AI to be like excelling at. So yeah, that's the part I think that's creating still a lot of value to like creating more human connection rather than spending your time staying at a computer, filling out some forms that can just be done by AI.
I agree deeply with that. Like the transcription in doctor, yes, it's amazing the difference that it makes, especially when I would call it like when you have a touchy conversation or like the topic that you're having with your doctor is not like straightforward, like, oh, I'm having a little cold. Like, yeah, that's easy. But when you're having a longer discussion, that's kind of like impact your long term. I think having the transcription really helps because, yeah, like you said, like it really allows the connection. It allows the doctor to listen to your intonation, to your interrogation around like, hey, I did not really get that, what you were saying. Now they're able to anticipate that. And it doesn't look like, for me, it doesn't look like, that there used to be a level of frustration when you ask a doc a question, and now it seems to be a lot better.
Yeah, and think about when you are actually looked in the eye by your doctor rather than like they look at their own screen, right?
Yes, yes, yes. All right, moving on. Let's talk about like product growth and then when things needs to grow like super fast. Let me give you some example. Like I've been at Meta for a while and I've witnessed like some massive amount of growth. You can imagine like the early days of COVID where people are stuck at home and we getting more and more traffic and more users and then we can barely keep up at like, putting servers and tuning features and things like that. And in your world with Zoom, I think you were experiencing the same growth at that time. And I assume that right now, like with these things like the AI companion and so on, you are also seeing some level of growth in the area. So can you describe to me a little bit your method or like your ways of handling that? Sometimes the growths are unexpected, and sometimes you need to deal with them, and you need to deal with them at the product level and so on. So if you have some example you would like to share that's happening with Zoom and so on, and how do you handle product feature in such a fast paced growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot comes to mind when we think about that. Maybe let's start with meetings. So
Okay.
meetings is where like we have, millions of users, hundreds of millions of users and meetings. And in there are actually, if you don't already notice, you don't think of it as AI, but there are a lot of features that are using AI that are kind of present in every meeting. Like right now, we have closed caption. Then we could also have in every meeting, there's a summary enabled. Like just think about how big of a pipeline that is. So I think at Zoom, we do want to bring collaboration to everybody. So we did, I think for closed caption, we don't even just limit it to paid users. We open up to every free account. So in that kind of sense, when we build solutions, we naturally think about how we scale it.
Okay.
And that includes a bunch of technical stack innovation, kind of bring some of this technology to like on-prem, right, for more safety and also like lower cost and latency. When we roll out the feature, I think from product perspective, we also think about what is the, what's the percentage rollout and like which regions should we like enable first? And do we have like for different regions, are we supporting the right language? Because when it
Yeah,
comes to
yeah.
conversations, you and I could be talking a different language or in like a bilingual context. So those are all the areas we think about to really like serve our existing audiences.
I can share something about closed caption, and then I will try to not offend all the teachers of my kids. So you can imagine, like, we have like teacher parent conference once in a while at school, and some of them, like, the teacher just they will present a lot of stuff, or they have like some sort of assembly or something, and then it's happening during work hours. So there was a time where I was like trying to, okay, I need to have that work meeting at the same time. Well, I need to be on that Zoom call for the school also at the same time. So I would like, put the second Zoom in a virtual machine on the side, enable closed caption on it so that I can see what's happening, can listen to the details while I'm having my work call. So this has been a saver a couple of times, like having the closed caption enable and doing like a very decent job of like giving me the insight about, okay, what's happening? Do I need to listen now? Okay, what this is it. So, all right. If I was to talk about for Zoom or for other products, like a lot of products are making, I would call it like direct calls to foundation LLMs without like adding any value. So what's your take into like, I will call it like, making really like a product differentiation around like, okay, I'm going to add transcription, I'm going to add things, but like, do you have like a way of thinking about like, hey, how do I make my product different in terms of like using LLMs and these types of technology?
So we do use a what we call federated AI approach, where we use
Okay.
different underlying LLMs. So we do pick them. We basically route the right LLM, like right call to
Yeah.
the right model, depending on the
Okay.
task at hand. So, but that's not enough, right? Like you said, like where we provide value is still kind of coming back to where customers have the biggest friction today. Like well, I do have this belief that your meetings experience is gonna be foundationally different with first AI powered and then to AI native meetings lifecycle. And but a lot of the kind of the pain points are still the same. Like in between meetings, how do you quickly catch up on things before you hop on to the next one?
Yeah.
And post meeting, there's just so much to catch up on. Where should you start? So we still kind of grounded at like fundamentally where users are struggling today. So, and that means that could be, hey, after post meeting, they wanted to write an update to another system outside of Zoom. And do we have that connector and tool for them to
Got
automate?
it.
So that's how we think about, okay, then we need a way to talk to that system. Is it via
Yeah.
the MCP or is it via like API? And then we also need, hey, to prepare for a specific meeting, you may need somebody's like you and I, you probably look me up on LinkedIn or, other sources. So how can we bring the right data? So kind of creating a system around the LLM is what kind of make it truly powerful for our users.
Yeah, I'm adding a lot of, because like as a Zoom user, you probably do have a lot of context on me. And if you add that context, you can generate a lot of more additional information, especially in the case that you mentioned, like, the LinkedIn lookup and that type of things. Yes, I totally agree. Let's talk about the speed of delivery of new feature or innovation that we are experiencing right now. Like, I think since the last, I would say, like 12 months, the expectation that people have for products, for SaaS products, and for a variety of things, now that we have a lot of coding agents and a lot of like AI assisted system, lots of features are expecting to move fast and to be available very, very quickly. How do you deal with this on a daily basis? How do you deal with this with your team and so on?
It is tough. I think on the one hand, as a product manager, it's definitely delightful and like exciting to see, a 6 month roadmap item is like accelerated to like 2 weeks or even
2 weeks.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's like a product manager's dream, in the old times. But at the same time, there's a few challenges. First is when we mentioned a little bit about how design and like engineering collaboration have shifted, where engineer comes up with prototypes and then design does the polishes.
Yeah.
So but then we also need to know how much polish is needed because you
Yeah.
always balance like time to market and engineers may like have built this. You be like, okay, we ship it tomorrow. But then as a PM, you still need to think about our users, are customers going to understand the value and are they going to be able to understand how to use it? So then that has like a few different elements to it. You have to have a reasonable design. And then you also need all the, like for us, we also have a lot of enterprise customers. So the field teams, marketing teams really need to understand what exactly are this like 10 features you're launching next week. So I think there is a gap here. We as PMs were like stretched really thin right now to really trying to be on every customer call or like be with our field teams to help them understand what agents are and
Yeah.
how can they help their how safe they are. So it's a challenge. And I think we are adapting, like a lot of the traditional processes are changing. And we are also internally encouraging our own teams, sales teams, and other teams to adopt more AI themselves, dogfooding a lot of our product because it's more natural for like the product design engineering team to be doing a lot of it, but not outside of the organization. But as I see it, in order to succeed, we need a full, like everybody to be using it, to be dogfooding it, and then they can kind of like speak the language when they talk to the customers.
Yeah, totally agree. One thing that I've observed in the last few months is that when using the coding agent and AI tool, there's like, I feel that there's two modes. There's a mode that you're creating something new from scratch, where you have less constraint, where you can afford between iteration to change everything because it's new. It hasn't been released.
Mhm.
Then there's a second mode where you're modifying an existing product and you're modifying an existing on top of an existing code base and feature set, and you're heading. And in that mode, I feel that you have to control the agents a lot more. You have to give them guidelines and guardrail a lot more to only change what you want to change and not do like a massive amount of refactoring that you're like, oh, this has side effect. And I think as an industry, like we're barely coming up with these like patterns right now. Like I see people applying like letting agents very loose in like, giant code base when they wanted to modify, like, hey, that was little features and they changed a lot during that time. So then it's really like difficult to understand like the change management and how to do this. And as an industry, I feel like, oh, okay, we haven't established these roles yet. And I think we'll need to come up with some of this. All right, let me jump to a little bit more about like if I bubbled out of the technical world, let's talk a bit about your career evolution and so on. And, I did look you up on LinkedIn before and I realized that you did an MBA. And a lot of engineers that are listening to this podcast or attending the At Scale conference have also got the question at some point in their career, like, hey, should I do an MBA to move the next step? What benefit will I get? Like, what will I get in exchange of me like spending a year or two of my life doing this? Could you share a bit more about your experience with your MBA and, what sort of benefits did you get from it?
Yeah, that's a totally fair question to ask. And especially coming from like engineering background, I remember the day I kind of shared the news with my coworkers at Airbnb that I was gonna leave my job and then pursue a 2-year full-time MBA. And everybody was like in shock and like they just couldn't understand, and for good reasons. Because I think eventually it depends on what you want yourself to become like in your like longer term career. So what I mean by that is that so what MBA gives me, I like is this really interdisciplinary view. So allows me to combine my past engineering expertise. I really know how to build a product inside out with customer and market insights and business intelligence. What's the right business model to make this product successful? There are just so many things that also need to happen. And for that, if that's something that you see yourself turn into, then I think you would ask yourself then, does your current job expose you to these learnings and
Yeah.
opportunities? If it already does, then perhaps you don't need an MBA. But what MBA could be is that it could be a crash course. It could be a kind of faster way for you to get all these exposure. You can build a product in like a class and actually pitch it to some investors, and you could have that condensed experience really quickly. Yeah, I think that's how I would, give advice to somebody considering it. But it's not needed. I think I think in the old world where you think MBA, what it gives you is a higher level after you graduate. I don't think that's true for tech.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that's true anymore, but I agree with your response. It's something I've never did an MBA, but I was exposed to some aspect of it. And then, like you said, it exposes you to, I would call it different area. As an engineers, we think about building the product, that box, like we know. But then we sometimes don't care about how hard it is to go to market. Like, how do you market it? How do you identify the market segment? How do you price it properly so that so people that need it can actually pay for it and they're willing to take a leap of faith. So, and then it got exposed also. Like, I work a lot in, I will call it like data centers these days because we're putting a lot of capacity. The financial aspect of it, like how do you fund these things so that eventually, and how do you calculate ROI? And I think like people doing an MBA have a good sense about like not the exact calculation, but the entire process from A to Z on how do you get there. And there's actually steps. Like it's not just building the product or the UI or the widget. It's actually everything all around. So great insight that you have. On the insights front, like you've been working for a while, and I'm sure you've worked with a bunch of product managers, and I'm sure they shared at some point in time where you were having a hard day. They share like, oh, you should tackle this problem this way, and you're like, oh my god, yeah, I never thought about this. So some of these wisdom that you learn over time as a project manager, I'm wondering if there are some that you would like to share with the audience here.
Hmm. There are so many different types of PM. I think PM is one of those roles that there's no set formula. If anything, I think it would be like always be customer focused, like will always be in the problem. I think that's shared across different PM types. But there are PMs who are really technical, right? They can like
Yeah.
draw diagrams and really be like being customer close, answering the most like deep technical question about how a system works. And there are PMs who are really good at like prototyping and they can like spin up like a visual thing and get everybody aligned really quickly. And there are also like growth PMs, platform PMs. There are just like so many different types of PMs that I often find myself can like learn from. And if we are thinking about wisdom, I think maybe in the AI world, like where I am at right now, where I think a good PM needs to like the mindset needs to shift a little bit. So some recent wisdom I've found is that previously I have so much passion for like user experience. And sometimes you as a PM, you really think you know what's the right
Mm,
experience, user experience. And you would know immediately, hey, people will be confused when they see this. You have a strong opinion. But now I am asking myself to let go a little bit because oftentimes I see that engineers right now really have a good sense of what AI can do and cannot do because a lot of the AI product like Cursor, like a code is like solving a lot of engineering scenarios and they kind of actually have a good sense of what the UI could even be like
yeah.
and what the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
experience is like. So that I would think that I realized when I take a step back and not dictating some of these decisions, our products actually launch faster. And
Mm,
they're like, and we will always get the feedback we needed. And sometimes it's not as scary as I would have thought if I didn't gate that decision. So I think gating is the sense of like PM gating is a little different. I think I also now spend more time try to like with like users and customers to really see when they already built this, maybe this is like a preview, but I want to see their reactions. I spend more time there rather than in the details of like the solution. And
that's
I do
great.
encourage other PMs to maybe, if you have this same habit of me being like super excited about the right user experience and solution, to kind of try a few times to see how the product goes without, you gating it so specifically.
Yeah. I think this applies to not just PM, but also like engineering managers and so on. That decentralization of decision usually like helps a lot. Like you said, like moving things faster and empowering people. Sometimes the person that knows the most is the one that closest to the code, but sometimes it's not. But like empowering that feedback to move like very quickly, I think like it's actually key. Let's talk about like also like a different odd topic, more future looking. Let's talk about like super intelligence. There is a lot of discussion about like, achieving AGI and achieving like, very like a lot more powerful models that we have today, like human level intelligence and then the ability to move things forward. So what are your views on the topic and on the opportunity that it could bring? And, what are the challenge to achieve it?
Yeah, there are now like so many big words about AI. Like I actually looked up before this. I was like, is AGN and super intelligence the same thing? Like what are we,
Yeah,
how are we
yeah, yeah.
defining each?
Yes.
So, and I think ChatGPT gives me this answer is like, oh,
Okay,
super
great.
intelligence is like beyond humans, right? Like they're smarter in humans in like many ways. And then I think artificial general intelligence is like you could automate maybe like more than 50% of like the tasks, what humans can do and across different categories. I think there's a benchmark for that. I From my day-to-day work, I do believe that AI is gonna be better at so much better than human at a specific set of tasks, right? Because like the speed of reaction, right? The
Yeah.
AI can process and like give you an answer for is just a match. Like human doesn't think that way and doesn't respond that fast. So while I don't know what the future really holds for like super intelligence and AGI, I do think that we need to be prepared knowing that there are certain areas maybe we will just delegate,
Yeah.
completely to AI, and we may not need to hone our skills as much in that category, whereas we dedicate our time to like perfecting other areas. And what we do believe, at least here at Zoom, like we still think that human to human connection is not gonna go away, and then it's
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
gonna be more important than before. So yeah, that's the view we hold, and we build products to kind of make that easier and like, make you more present.
Yeah, I kind of share the same, very similar view that things are progressing and a lot of things that will be automated will actually be automated. And it will give us the time to focus on human connection or creativity or solving problems that we were thinking that it was not possible before in the like software engineering world, because like it would have required like 3 years of coding, and by the time you're done it's not even usable. So like it's just changing a lot of the time scale and allows us to really focus on problems and not just on the implementation themselves, because like we have a lot of problems, and so the need for humans still there.
That's great
If
to
I
hear, isn't it?
Yeah. If I was to like bubble it down just to like your more like, product manager day to day, is there like a next AI breakthrough? I would call it, let's call it like, 3, 6, 9 months that you're looking forward, that it's happening. Or you can say, hey, that this is the AI breakthrough that we are planning to offer the Zoom customers also. Like, that'll be great.
One area I think a lot about, and like Zoom in our particular context, is that we power real-time collaboration. Unlike a lot of some other like SaaS tools, it's more like
Yeah.
you are talking to a system or you are talking to someone offline, but we are in the moment. But there are a lot of challenges with bringing AI right at the moment when we speak. When we talk a lot about, hey, AI can be so proactive, like reading your mind,
Yeah.
knowing that right now maybe you need to like search something online and you didn't answer immediately, but there's still a lot of noise and kind of like false positives with that. But I do think with like the latest reasoning capability improvements, I'm pretty excited about like this real time kind of inference to be more accurate.
Yes. I totally agree with the line of thinking, the direction of thinking. And give you some example. Like I often deal with production outage, and let's call it like, a piece of Meta is having a problem right now. And I often need like, okay, I need context. I need context. What did break? What's the customer complaint right now on this thing? What did we change in the last 30, 45, 60 minutes? Is there a problem with capacity wise? Did we change? Did something around the world change to create that situation? And like, I would love to have like some sort of agent that keeps on feeding me context on the side so that I can actually make that decision. Then, okay, I need to go and investigate in that direction versus the other direction.
Yeah, these war rooms that you get pulled in and you need to
Yes.
immediately catch up on everything that's like live in production rather than like beyond just like history and what's happening right now. So yeah.
Great. All right. Before we finish, I want to do a couple of like quick lightning question, and you don't have to think that much about it. Like you just like your first response. So if I was to ask you today, what's like, it could be personal, it could be at work, whatever it is. What's the model that's the most efficient for you? Like if you were to say, hey, Gemini, Llama, Claude, OpenAI, which one is more efficient for you?
I definitely have been in the camp of people who love ChatGPT and
Awesome.
recently moved to Claude.
Okay.
So, and especially with co-work, I'm using a bit more Claude these days. And co-work, I think, specifically uses Opus.
Yeah,
So
yeah, Opus model. Yeah. What's the place in your personal life or work life where you say, yeah, I don't have an AI tool right now, but I really need one.
it's in the physical world.
It's in
So
physical world.
I do think that a lot of times I'm bad at like fixing things. And here in like, a lot of times we need to like fix our own refrigerator or like a thing that goes wrong with like my washer. So what I did find really helpful is ChatGPT's like voice mode, real time. Like you can talk to it and then like now I like try to change this thing out according to your suggestion, but I now see this water come out this other way. Like what should I do next? So that was useful. But I guess I do hope that one day there's some like physical help that can just get those done. So I can then do other things that my job requires.
Great. On that line, I cannot wait for the day that my fridge know what's getting inside the fridge and getting out so that when I get to the grocery store, I have a list that I could just like, I don't have to improvise and miss half of it every time.
It's a classic PM interview question to design like a smart fridge.
Yeah.
And I do think that with like always like brainstorm so much like AI solutions, scanning what's in it and like designing a recipe. So I think that's might be finally coming true at
I
some point.
hope, I hope, I hope. With two kids, it's always a nightmare about figuring out what am I missing or not. All right, it was amazing talking to you. It was a great conversation. So thank you so much. I'm sure the audience will appreciate, and thank you.
Great, thank you.
This was our first podcast for the year 2026. There will be many more to come. Please check out our website for the schedule for the events and conference and hope to see you there.